starting to go live. Yay! All righty. I'm going to move books. Who wants to look at books the whole time? Not me. There we go. My earring. I got all dressed up for you. And then I go into work maybe. It's kind of snowy here. And really in Missouri, it's really just ice. So you can't do anything. I don't think the kids mind. It's still white, right? All that stuff they can slide around on. I'm Melissa. I'm with Beloved Bust. I'm here to chat with you. We're going to talk about flare-ups because I hate flare-ups. And it's like usually right when you start feeling better and you think, oh, there I am. I'm going to do this. I got this day. And then you start feeling wonky and have exaggerations of symptoms and all the things. It's not fun at all. Flare-ups can really set you back in your mindset too. You know, you start feeling better, you start thinking things are working and you're doing all the things, and you have a flare-up and it's quite easy to catch that thought of like, oh, I'm never going to feel better. I'm not going to be able to get this. Why am I flared up? Susie, my neighbor, is running around doing whatever. So it's flare-ups are tricky. Pain is the body asking for attention, right? We're going to talk about body, mind, and spirit because it's more than just pain, right, when we have flare-ups. And so what's a flare-up? We can obviously talk about the pain if you have a flare-up in maybe in the zingers, the type of symptoms that you already had been dealing with in the past. So it can be exaggeration of all those symptoms, again, where you feel like you're starting to make progress and it feels like you're going backwards. If we call it a flare-up, right, it maybe can take the heat off that moment because you're not necessarily going backwards, right? Imagine things like an expansion and contraction. So we're just contracting. The body maybe on a primal level doesn't feel safe, right? Something stirred up fight or flight. And one of the things I notice with the women that I work with, and even with myself, is as I start feeling better, I start doing more, and then I get injured. Like the other day, I was letting the dogs out. I've been feeling really good. I'm letting the dogs out, and I'm like, woo, open the door, and I hurt my arm. Like, just because I've been laying around for 2 years doesn't mean I should get injured opening the door. Very subtle, just a pull. Not a thing, but in my head I can think, I didn't even do anything. I opened the door. And then I go, you know what? It's kind of a good sign because I think I'm moving more, right? We're doing more things in a more animated way. So even if you aren't cranking out at the gym or doing quote unquote the physical activity that you think that you really want to do or you're looking forward to getting to that space, we can start noticing these flare-ups on that early stages as well. So you're in overwhelm, you have increase in pain, you've got a decrease in resources, right? So even your brain isn't really on board. So you're kind of brain fog and you're not thinking of all the things. As I try and figure things out, my brain just isn't in there. So we're talking about flare-ups and how to avoid them. So we talk about threshold a lot here. You're closer to that line of threshold, and anything can kick you over into overwhelm. Once you're right there close to that line of threshold, doesn't take much to pop you on over into overwhelm. More pain, anxiety, all of those things. Racing thoughts, hard to wind down even. You might be really tired and yet you still can't rest or find that zone, right? If we look at body, mind, and spirit, if we just pull it apart a little bit, we can start to look at the signs of a flare-up, noticing the early signs. So then you can unwind a little bit, coast in a sense, take a couple things off your plate. So we're going to talk about that. All right. So again, if we talk about the mind first, if you are in overwhelm or you're having a flare-up, or notice right before the flare-up, before it's like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, oh, I have all this pain. Your mind, some of the early signs of that would be some of that brain fog we talked about, maybe more than you've had lately, or it's come in where you seem to be quite clear and able to process and figure things out. Where's the flour? I know right where the flour is. It's on the second shelf. And there it is, right? You ever look for coffee and you know the coffee's right there and I can't find the coffee? It's right here. Where's the coffee, right? That would be a little indicator that you're kind of close to that line of threshold, that you're kind of close to overwhelm. Might be a sign that things are kind of contracting close to that flare up kind of space. Okay? So we got brain fog, we have a decrease in resources. You might have racing thoughts where you just can't slow it down, right? You're thinking of all the things and things that aren't even that important. Like even tiny things seem to be a really big deal. Hard to sleep, right? Really hard to shut it down. Okay, so those can be some indications of your mind as you're kind of closer to overwhelm or even closer to that flare up. And let's talk about the body. So in the body, some of the signs that maybe you're close to a flare up is increase in pain, zingers, right? I talked about how I opened the door and injured my arm, barely, but I wasn't doing much, right? So you're just doing little things and you seem to, like you put your shoe on and you pull your back or something. Really tiny things that don't, in another world, don't really add up to what your normal day might be like, right? Again, that can be a good sign that you're moving more and you're more animated in your movement and you just haven't moved in a long time. So, but if you start having all of that, right, it can be an indication that you can kind of slow it down. And we're going to talk about that as well today. You might feel puffy, like none of your clothes fit. And it was like from one day to the next. So your body is just maybe not processing as well as it normally does. You might notice that your heart rate is a little increased. Say you go up the stairs and it feels like it takes, like you kind of catch your breath, like more than maybe the day before or the week before. You hadn't really thought about it. You just go up the stairs and do your thing. And then all of a sudden you're kind of go up the stairs and you feel like you got to take a break. You might be hypersensitive, and not in a negative way, but you just notice like sounds. You're turning the TV down. Your partner, your person in the house seems to be like they talk so loud. Like I don't remember them talking loud all the time. Maybe someone's on the phone and it's annoying. Just little things are kind of, you can tell you're close to that line of threshold. This could be signs that a flare up, like if you keep pushing past that, that could be that stage where a flare up might show up. Flare-ups are not your fault, right? Sometimes the body just goes through this ebb and flow, kind of like weather. Oh, the clouds are coming in. So we can use these signs to just notice, like, ooh, weather's coming in. And so you just slow it down, right? So we'll talk about the spirit, and then we'll get to solutions. The spirit, notice, I like to address that part of myself, right? Like you just kind of have a heavy heart. You might wake up and you're just like, oh, I have to do this dumb day, right? A little dread in there. You don't feel good in your body, like you can't find stuff to wear that help, Sometimes you can put on your favorite pair of pants or a bright color or something, and it just kind of perks you up a little bit. Or there's those days when you change clothes like 5 times, or you just wear something like, it doesn't matter, I don't care. So it's very kind of flat and doesn't like feeding your soul. Same thing, you might be standing in the refrigerator and you're just looking like nothing is kind of fitting that little zone that helps you, that feels good. Even the stuff that normally on a hard day you might have, just really relish in your cup of coffee or whatever it is, a cup of tea, and it just is not working for you, right? You can take a bath and it's kind of cold. You're just sitting there like, I should probably get out, right? Not feeding the spirit. So those are little signs that could be close to that contraction, right? And so what are we going to do about it? Well, if you notice any of those, again, you can kind of pull it apart, body, mind, and spirit, and you just notice, right? What is showing up for you? You take a little temperature, right? You kind of do a little inventory and notice what's going on. If you have a couple of those things across the board, body, mind, and spirit, It can be a time where you can go, oh, look out. What does my body need? What does my heart and soul need right now? And I got to say, for all three of them, body, mind, and spirit, number one answer would be rest, right? Take things off the plate. And for the body, that is very true. We just going to shut down some of the things, right? I'm not going to fold the laundry today. I might do it tomorrow, or I'm going to ask somebody to help, or carry it up the stairs, or carry the groceries in from the car, or any of physical kind of activities, of course. So slow it down. If I have clients that are doing some of the stretches or some of the myofascial stretch method techniques, and they have increased pain afterwards, and it's more than like that gym workout, we're going to take a day or two off, or three, really listening to the body and looking as we reintroduce that stretch to the body. We're going to go really slow. You might do it on the bed instead of the floor, right? So modify the things that you might be doing to take care of your body. We've got your scar release, right? You're going to address and work on those areas like in a very calm, like in a self-care sort of way, right? Sometimes we can do body work or work on ourselves. We're like, oh, this hurts so bad. Go away, go away. I'm going to roll on the foam roller and get it. And that is different than just laying and just kind of giving yourself some feedback, giving yourself some compression and relaxing and softening into your stretch or compression. So you've got your myofascial stretch method technique, which I teach, which you can use a yoga mat or a swim noodle, right? And again, if you're having a high pain flare-up day, you just skip that day and do something that's very nurturing for you. You can, I talked to someone on one of the calls that we talked about was to get another round of PT or OT, right? So go to your doctor, and if you have a baseline of pain that you're not able to walk or do the things, right? We talked about the one thing, like I want to go to the gym, but you're still having trouble walking because it has pain, then you can go to PT. Get that baseline covered. If you've been recovering, you haven't done a lot of stuff, you've been hanging out in bed and on the couch and all of that recovery, it can take away some of that core baseline that you had of strength and endurance and such. So take your time building back up. So if you are doing too much, your body's going to tell you. And so you just slow it down. That can be a day off, that can be a week off, that can change you can change the intensity of how you're trying to get movement and get strength back in your body, right? So slow it down. And you can get a script. Go see a PT or OT. You got your scar release, you got your myofascial stretch method techniques. There's videos on those, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Rest, rest, and rest, right? Just shutting it down, less errands, less doing, and just letting your body. Last week we talked about different types of rest, even active rest. So it might even be reading or knitting or baking, things that feel good for you, that aren't like have a deadline or have this thing, right? That pressure to kind of finish. So taking things off your plate, getting body work. We have had lots of talks about self-care. So having a list of things that you love of self-care, because sometimes when you're in it, our resources, our brain does not offer helpful tips, right? It's like, oh, this is terrible. I'm going to be in pain for the rest of my life. Thank you, brain. You pull out the list of self-care things and you have a list there ready. I love baths. Don't forget right? Flowers. I'm really into English muffins right now. What is that, right? English muffin with a little almond butter. Ooh, and I just settle right in, right? Calms the spirit. Cup of coffee, cup of tea, all those beautiful things that work for you. You can have that list handy, so if your resources aren't really there, you're just not in it, you can kind of go through that list and see if something strikes your fancy, right? Take a walk, get in nature, those different kinds of ways that you can reconnect with yourself. All right, mind. How do we do when our mind is racing and doing all the things? You can, if you're a person who maybe takes care of lots of people or the family or at the office or whatever, you can bring your attention, as opposed to monitoring all these other people and all the things and taking care of all the things, bring your attention inside. And so as opposed to taking care of things, I just bring it inside and I feel and notice and breathe. It doesn't even have to be a long, long time. It could be 30 seconds where you're just kind of, again, I can be out here or I can bring my attention inside. We do a little bit of that work with mapping, which is one of the on the 5-day journey. One of those videos is really, again, just bringing your attention like a flashlight back into your body. It can be really helpful to slow down the racing thoughts as well as the breath work, which can be very simple, which is just breathing in for the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, and exhale for the count of 4. You can change that number to whatever works for you. And it is just bringing your attention to your breath as opposed to the racing thoughts. It really can soften those. We're addressing fight or flight, right? So you're allowing your nervous system and your thoughts, you're changing your attention to your body, to your breath, to stillness, just by noticing or counting that breath. Journal it out. That's got to be a list on your self-care. Sometimes it's just great to get it out of your head. So some women call it like swamp it out, right? So in the journal, you're like, I hate this. I hate breast cancer. This doctor pissed me off. Blueberries don't taste good to me anymore. What the heck, right? So you can swamp it out and journal it out. And then when you do something like that, when you swamp it out, follow that up with some gratitudes or something, right? So you're not just leaving like, right? And you can do the swamp it out dance and then soften and do a little gratitude in there. Like, what are we grateful for? And we can make our, sometimes it can feel like work. Like, what am I grateful for? Nothing, right? So you can just sit there, like, it can be very basic that can get you on that gratitude train. Like, I'm grateful I have food. And I'm grateful that my family is safe, right? These bigger ones. And it can go to just catching that thread of gratitudes can help you find that feeling, that sensation, and soften into that I'm okay space, where deep down you know that you're okay, right? So those are some of the ways that you can address the mind. Again, we've always had that list of self-care. So when you're in it, you don't have to figure things out when you're in it. In a flare-up, you just look at your list and find some of your favorites, okay? Spirit, so we talk about that sense of self. We got that on the top of the list. Guess what that is? Rest, right? Rest, rest, and rest, right? In last week's Facebook Live, we talked about 3 different types of rest. So feel free to refer to that or even the blog that we sent out. The newsletter that I wrote about rest is a great resource for that. The other piece I think I found that's quite lovely is to create ceremony, which sometimes I forget, and a routine, if you will. So sometimes if I light a candle right before I go to sleep by the bedside, and I can just have it there and I can think about my gratitudes. I can just look at the flame. It doesn't have to be a big to-do, right? So create a little routine or ceremony that your mind will eventually and your spirit start to track. So it's like, oh, I don't feel very good. I don't know what's going on. And you light the candle. You're just kind of in overwhelm. And there's a candle. And you've done that for a while. It's something that that can be very calming and nurturing to your sweet spirit. I like to get myself flowers sometimes, right? I don't even put them downstairs in the house. I put them right by my head where I sleep, right? I think, oh, the flowers should be on the dining room table so the whole house can enjoy my flowers. I was like, I'm putting these things up right by my head. And so I get to see them. These flowers are for me, right? And whatever makes you happy in those spaces. But do these little bitty gestures can be very sweet, and the spirit recognizes that, right? That part of us that is having a hard time, like a heavy heart kind of feeling. So we can do little things that can lift that heart space. Breath work, doing something that you love, right? Calling a friend, connecting with someone that is near and dear to you. I like to, sometimes when I'm really in it and I don't have a lot of resources and I'm going for the TV, right? But I'm going to pick something that's really inspiring. Like, don't ask me how many times I've watched Wonder Woman. And a very specific part of Wonder Woman that I love, right? She gets her shield, she climbs over, and the men are like, no, don't do it, it's terrible. And she is doing it, right? She goes there and she's got her shield and she's going to save the world, basically, right? She's going to end the war. So, little tiny things like that, right? And so you're just feeding your sweet spirit with a character in a book or maybe a character in a TV show that you really like. And it can just remind you of your own strength, of your own courage, of your own sense of self. And you can kind of weave that in to some of those days that might be a little harder. We're watching these as the overwhelm and things because that can be a sign. If we push through that, of course we're going to have a flare up. If you have pain and you're just making yourself go through it and it's fine and you push through it, it's going to get a little louder, right? Pain is the body asking for attention. And so if we notice those early signs of a flare up, we can bring it back. So we might even still go through that flare up process, but it won't be as intense. It won't have to last as long. When women start healing, when my clients start healing, one of the things we talk about is you still have flare ups, you still will have pain, but the intensity isn't as high, right? We don't have to go into it as deep and we're not in it as long, right? So your normal days get better and better and the flare-ups get less intense and they don't last as long. That's what we're looking at. So noticing, doing an inventory and that body, mind, and spirit can be really helpful for you to kind of track what's coming. Maybe it won't be such a surprise. It can be, again, the flare-ups can be, they can be hard, especially when you start feeling better. And so our brain, I just was feeling better. I thought I was done with that. And so it's okay. Your body is going to go through this ebb and flow just like water, just like the weather. And yet you can watch it come in and adjust your schedule, adjust your daily routine, and add some underlying pieces to create some more movement, more sense of grace and ease as you ebb and flow through that healing process. I'm Melissa. I am so grateful that you're all here and connecting. Reach out if you have any questions. Again, right now I'm offering a free call if you'd like to connect and talk and wonder what it's like to work